The massive human fleet emerged from the darkness of space without warning. They appeared near the central systems of the Galactic Empire like ghosts materializing from nothing. 57 ships in total, their hulls gleamed with an unusual silver-blue light that made them look almost liquid against the backdrop of stars. The Empire's sensors struggled to make sense of these vessels. They were unlike anything recorded in Imperial databases. Admiral Kim stood rigid on the command deck of the Imperial flagship Eternal Glory. His scales reflected the red emergency lights that had automatically activated when the unknown fleet was detected. Around him, crew members worked frantically at their stations, their four-fingered hands moving rapidly across control panels. "Magnify," Admiral Kim ordered, his voice steady despite the tension coiling inside him. The main view screen zoomed in on the lead human vessel. It was smooth and elegant, lacking the aggressive spines and weapon ports that characterized Imperial warships. Yet something about it radiated power. "They're not moving to attack positions," reported Navigation Officer Han, her antennae twitching in confusion. "Maintain battle readiness," Admiral Kim replied. His mandibles clicked together, a gesture of deep concern among his species. "Send word to Emperor Park immediately. The vessels have unknown energy signatures, unlike anything in our database." Communications Officer Yoon nodded, her scaled head bobbing as she transmitted the urgent message to the Imperial Palace. Within minutes, confirmation came back that the Emperor himself would review the situation. While they waited, the human fleet remained perfectly positioned, making no aggressive moves but showing no signs of retreat either. Their formation suggested military precision. Admiral Kim studied them carefully, noting how they maintained perfect spacing without constant thruster adjustments. Technology even the Empire hadn't mastered. "Sir, they're transmitting," Officer Yoon suddenly announced. "On speakers," Kim ordered. A calm voice filled the command deck, speaking in perfect Imperial Standard language. "Attention Imperial vessels. This is Captain Song of the Human Exploration Fleet. We come seeking dialogue. Please respond." The crew exchanged nervous glances. The language was flawless, too flawless. It suggested the humans had been studying them for quite some time. "Maintain communication silence until we receive Imperial instructions," Admiral Kim commanded. His military training took over as he assessed potential scenarios. If the humans wanted to attack, they would have done so by now. This suggested other motives, perhaps diplomacy, perhaps deception. Within hours, the Imperial Palace on the capital world buzzed with urgent activity. The High Council chamber, a vast hexagonal room with soaring crystal ceilings, filled with representatives from the Empire's ruling species. Emergency lights cast everything in an ominous red glow. Emperor Park entered the chamber and all conversation ceased. He was a towering figure, standing nearly 3 meters tall, with ceremonial gold markings across his exoskeleton. His 4 eyes surveyed the room with the cold calculation that had helped him rule the Empire for 70 cycles. "Report," he said simply, taking his seat on the eternal throne. Grand Intelligence Director Lee stepped forward. She was smaller than most in the chamber, but moved with confident purpose. She unfurled a holographic display in the center of the room, showing the human fleet in perfect detail. "Your Eminence, we have very little information about these beings called humans," she began. "They appear to have remained hidden beyond the Void Nebula, in a sector we believed uninhabitable." Emperor Park's upper limbs tapped impatiently on his throne. "How many worlds do they control?" "Unknown, Your Eminence. Our deep space probes have never penetrated far beyond the Void Nebula due to radiation interference." "Their technology." Director Lee displayed sensor readings. "Based on passive scans, they appear to use energy systems unlike our own. Their hulls contain elements we cannot identify. Most concerning is their apparent mastery of gravitational manipulation." A murmur ran through the council chamber. Gravity manipulation was theoretical in Imperial science, not yet practical for shipbuilding. "And what do these humans want?" Emperor Park demanded. They've broadcast a single message across all frequencies, Director Lee replied. She activated another display, showing the simple message, "We come seeking dialogue." Emperor Park's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. The Empire had encountered thousands of species in its expansion, and most eventually fell under Imperial rule. These humans would likely be no different. Commander J, the Emperor addressed his military advisor. "What is your assessment?" Commander J stood, her ceremonial armor gleaming. The positioning of their fleet suggests defensive capability rather than offensive intent. However, their technology appears advanced. Caution is advised. The Emperor considered this information briefly. The Empire had not risen to dominate the galaxy by being cautious. "Prepare a diplomatic vessel," he declared. "We will grant these humans their dialogue. Director Lee, select representatives who will best assess their weaknesses. Commander J, prepare a battle group to remain on standby." As the council dispersed to execute his orders, Emperor Park remained seated on his throne. In private, he permitted himself a small gesture of excitement, flexing his killing claws that usually remained sheathed during council meetings. New species meant new resources, new planets, new subjects. The Empire always grew. It was the natural order of things. He had no way of knowing that for the first time in 8,000 years, the Empire had encountered a force that might be its equal, or perhaps its superior. High Chancellor Choi adjusted her ceremonial robes nervously as her shuttle approached the human vessel. The sleek Imperial craft looked small and primitive next to the massive human ship. Through the viewport, she could see the strange silver-blue hull up close. It seemed to pulse with inner light, almost as if it were alive. "Remember your training," she whispered to herself. As the Empire's chief diplomat, she had negotiated with hundreds of species, but something about these humans disturbed her. Their sudden appearance violated everything the Empire understood about space travel and detection systems. The shuttle docked with a gentle bump. Chancellor Choi straightened her spine, making her full height of nearly 2.5 meters more impressive. Behind her, the diplomatic delegation stood at attention. 6 representatives from the Empire's core species, each chosen for their expertise. "Show no weakness," she reminded them as the airlock cycled open. The human ship's interior surprised them immediately. It was surprisingly bright, with soft white lighting that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The corridors curved gently, without the sharp angles and imposing architecture that the Empire preferred. The air smelled clean but strange, lacking the chemical undertones common on Imperial vessels. A small delegation of humans awaited them in what appeared to be a reception area. Chancellor Choi studied them carefully. They were shorter than she expected, with soft-looking skin in various shades of tan and brown. No scales, no exoskeletons, no visible defensive adaptations. They looked vulnerable. One human stepped forward, clearly the leader. She had dark hair pulled back from her face and wore a simple blue uniform with minimal decoration. Most striking were her eyes, dark and unwavering, making direct contact with Chancellor Choi's 4 eyes in a way that felt unnervingly invasive. "Welcome aboard the Earthship Discovery," the human said. "I am Captain Kang. We appreciate your willingness to meet with us." Chancellor Choi performed the imperial greeting gesture. Upper arms crossed, lower arms extended. "I am High Chancellor Choi of the Eternal Galactic Empire. We come seeking to understand your purpose in imperial space." Captain Kang nodded, but did not attempt to replicate the imperial greeting. Instead, she gestured toward a doorway. "Please, join us in our conference room. We have much to discuss." The conference room continued the curved aesthetic of the corridors. A large oval table dominated the center, with chairs that looked strangely soft. More humans waited inside, each wearing similar blue uniforms with different colored markings. Once seated, Captain Kang wasted no time on pleasantries. "Thank you for coming, Chancellor. As you've likely guessed, we've been observing your empire's expansion for centuries." Chancellor Choi felt her inner eyelids flicker in surprise. a reaction she normally controlled perfectly. Impossible. Our borders have only reached the Void Nebula in the last 50 cycles. Captain Kang smiled slightly. We've been watching long before that, and we've seen enough to be concerned. Before Chancellor Choi could respond, Captain Kang made a small gesture with her hand. The center of the table shimmered, and a three-dimensional image appeared. A perfect holographic display showing an Imperial conquest fleet in orbit around a green-blue planet. This was the Duronian homeworld, 83 years ago, Captain Kang said. The hologram showed Imperial troops landing, setting up processing centers, and beginning mineral extraction operations. Chancellor Choi recognized the standard Imperial colonization protocol, efficient and thorough. The image changed to show Duronian natives being fitted with mural compliance collars and assigned to labor groups. And this, continued Captain Kang, was the Mesic system 37 years ago. Another planet, another conquest, then another and another. Each time, the pattern was the same: Imperial forces arriving, resources being extracted, native populations subjugated. Chancellor Choi maintained her diplomatic composure, though anger began to build inside her. You criticize what you cannot understand. The Empire brings order to chaos. We elevate primitive species through structure and purpose. Is that what you tell yourselves? Asked another human, seated to Captain Kang's right. His voice was deeper but equally calm. Captain Kang made another gesture, and the hologram changed again. This time it showed something that made Chancellor Choi's blood run cold: internal Imperial communications, strategy sessions in the Imperial Palace itself, military planning rooms that no outsider should ever have seen. How did you obtain these recordings? She demanded, abandoning diplomacy. We have our methods, Captain Kang replied simply. Earth and our colonies have remained hidden behind cosmic anomalies that your sensors couldn't penetrate. We've been able to observe without being observed. She leaned forward slightly. Now that the anomaly has naturally dissipated, we can no longer ignore what's happening in this galaxy. Your Empire's expansion methods are unacceptable by any civilized standard. Chancellor Choi fought to regain her composure. You dare judge the Empire? We have brought prosperity and advancement to thousands of worlds. At what cost? Asked Captain Kang. Your own record shows 17 species driven to extinction through resource depletion. 23 more reduced to survival-level populations, hundreds more enslaved. The delegation members behind Chancellor Choi shifted uncomfortably. These were not matters discussed openly, even among Imperial officials. What exactly do you want? Chancellor Choi asked finally. Captain Kang's expression softened slightly. Reform. We don't wish to destroy the Empire. That would create chaos across the galaxy. But your methods must change. And if we refuse? Captain Kang didn't answer directly. Instead, she activated another hologram, this one showing the human fleet positioned near crucial Imperial supply routes and communication hubs. The strategic placement was perfect. They could cripple Imperial operations without firing a single shot. We prefer dialogue, Captain Kang said quietly. We always prefer dialogue. But make no mistake, Chancellor, humanity will not stand by while atrocities continue. Chancellor Choi realized with growing dread that this was not a first contact situation at all. The humans had been watching, learning, and planning for generations. They knew the Empire better than many of its own citizens did. And somehow, despite all the Empire's power and glory, these soft-skinned creatures without claws or natural armor had already outmaneuvered them before the game had even begun. Emperor Park's mandibles clacked together furiously as he read the report from Chancellor Choi. The soft-skinned humans dared to make demands of his empire. He paced the Imperial war room, his claws clicking against the polished black stone floor. The golden markings on his exoskeleton seemed to glow with his rage. They dare lecture us on governance, he hissed, throwing the data tablet across the room. It shattered against the wall. The Empire has brought order to chaos for 10,000 years. The High Council members kept their heads bowed, none willing to meet the Emperor's four-eyed gaze. Only Admiral Kim, commander of the Imperial fleet, dared to speak. "Your Eminence," he said carefully, "our scans indicate their technological capabilities far exceed our own. The analysis suggests their weapons systems are at least 300 cycles ahead of Imperial science." Emperor Park stopped pacing. "Are you afraid, Admiral?" Admiral Kim knew a dangerous question when he heard one. Many had lost their positions and their lives for showing weakness before Emperor Park. "I fear only failure, Your Eminence," he answered. "But wisdom dictates we consider all factors before engaging an unknown enemy." Wisdom. Emperor Park spat the word. Was it wisdom that built this empire? No, it was strength and decisive action. He activated the central holographic display. The human fleet appeared, still in perfect formation near the Void Nebula. 12 ships, Emperor Park said. "We have over 800 in the home defense fleet alone." "But Your Eminence," began Grand Intelligence Director Lee. "Silence." Emperor Park cut her off. "I've heard enough caution and fear. Admiral Kim, you will take the fleet and show these humans the consequence of threatening the Empire." Admiral Kim bowed deeply, even as dread settled in his stomach. "As you command, Your Eminence." 6 hours later, Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of the Imperial dreadnought Eternal Conquest. Around him, the most powerful fleet ever assembled in Imperial history moved into attack formation. 843 warships, from massive dreadnoughts to nimble attack cruisers. The human fleet remained motionless, making no attempt to flee or reposition. "Enemy vessels still showing no shield activation," reported Tactical Officer Min. Admiral Kim nodded. Either the humans were fools, or they knew something he didn't. He suspected the latter. "All ships, prepare to fire," he ordered. "Target the largest vessel first." Across the Imperial fleet, weapon systems came online. Laser arrays charged to maximum. Plasma cannons heated to firing temperature. Antimatter missiles were loaded into launch tubes. "Your final order, Admiral?" asked his second-in-command. Admiral Kim hesitated for just a moment. "Fire." The space between the fleets lit up as thousands of weapons fired simultaneously. Laser beams, plasma bolts, and antimatter missiles streaked toward the human vessels, a display of firepower that had brought dozens of civilizations to their knees. As the barrage reached the human ships, shimmering blue fields appeared around each vessel. The fields didn't just block the attack, they absorbed it completely, like water soaking into sand. Not even the antimatter warheads made an impact. "Impossible," whispered Tactical Officer Min. "Fire again," ordered Admiral Kim. "All weapons, maximum power." The Imperial fleet fired a second volley, then a third. Each time, the result was the same. The blue fields glowed a little brighter with each attack, but showed no signs of failing. Then something strange happened. With precise timing, every weapon system across the Imperial fleet suddenly went dark. Not destroyed, simply disabled. Control panels flickered, then showed only the Imperial logo. "Engineering. Report," shouted Admiral Kim. "Unknown, Admiral," came the panicked reply. "Some kind of energy pulse penetrated our systems. We can't access weapons, shields, or engines." The entire fleet, the pride of the Empire, floated helplessly in space. They could maintain life support and communications, nothing more. Then every communication channel across the fleet activated simultaneously. The face of Captain Kang appeared on every screen. "Admiral Kim," she said calmly, "your weapons have been temporarily disabled to prevent further wasteful actions. We wish to avoid unnecessary loss of life." Before Admiral Kim could respond, the channel changed. Now it showed internal Imperial records, conversations between high officials discussing bribes, recordings of the Emperor ordering the extinction of species who refused to surrender, evidence of resources being diverted from Imperial projects to the private estates of council members. The same broadcasts were playing everywhere. not just on the fleet, but across the entire empire. Human intelligence operatives had accessed the Empire's most secure networks with ease, extracting decades of the darkest Imperial secrets. Admiral Kim watched in horror as his crew saw the truth of the Empire they served. The proud Eternal Empire suddenly looked corrupt and cruel through these unfiltered records. Reports began flooding in from across Imperial space. On 12 subjugated worlds, populations were rising up against their Imperial overseers. The Duronians had overwhelmed their work camps. The Mezek had seized the Imperial Governor's palace. Even the usually docile Xanthians were destroying resource extraction facilities. "Admiral," said Communications Officer Yun quietly, "we're receiving a direct transmission from Captain Kang. For you only." Admiral Kim nodded and took the transmission in his private chamber. Captain Kang's face appeared, calm as ever. "Your Emperor has failed you, Admiral," she said simply. "He chose pride over wisdom and put your fleet at risk unnecessarily." "What do you want?" Admiral Kim asked, his voice tight. "We want what's best for all species in this galaxy," she replied. "The Empire doesn't need to end. It needs to transform. Your Emperor will never accept this. Others in your command structure might." The implication was clear. "You're asking me to commit treason," Admiral Kim said. Captain Kang smiled slightly. "I'm asking you to save countless lives, including those of your own people. The choice is yours, Admiral. But choose quickly. Change is coming whether you participate or not." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Kim alone with the most difficult decision of his long career. Outside his chamber, across thousands of worlds, the Eternal Empire had begun to shake at its foundations. Captain Kang's face appeared on every screen across the Empire. From the grand displays in the capital city's central plaza to the smallest communication devices in distant colonies, her calm expression looked out at billions of Imperial citizens. Many were seeing the human for the first time. "People of the Empire," she began, her voice clear and steady. "For too long, you have been told half-truths by your leaders. You deserve better. The evidence we have shared is only a small portion of what we have gathered over centuries of observation." She paused, letting her words sink in. Across the Empire, citizens watched in stunned silence. In homes, workplaces, and public squares, all activity stopped. "We represent humanity and our allied species. We present you with a simple choice: reform or face intervention. The exploitation ends now. The subjugation of developing species ends now. The corruption ends now." In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Park watched the broadcast with cold fury. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation among his species. Around him, palace guards shifted nervously, uncertain what to do about this unprecedented situation. "Cut the transmission," he ordered. "How are they accessing our communication systems?" "We can't block it, Your Eminence," replied the communications officer. "They've somehow bypassed all our security protocols." Captain Kang continued speaking to the Empire. "We don't seek your destruction. We seek your transformation. The Empire can become a force for progress rather than exploitation. The choice is yours, but you must choose quickly." She looked directly into the camera, her eyes seeming to meet those of every viewer personally. "You have 48 standard hours to begin meaningful reforms. After that, we will take action." The broadcast ended, replaced by a simple countdown timer. Emperor Park retreated to his inner chambers, a secure bunker deep beneath the palace. Only his most trusted advisors were permitted to enter. For 6 hours, he desperately sent messages to other galactic powers: the Consortium of Free Worlds, the Hadrax Dominion, the Stellar Republic. He offered trade concessions, technology sharing, even territorial rights in exchange for military support against the humans. None responded. Grand Intelligence Director Lee finally entered the chamber with the explanation. Her usual composed demeanor had cracked, revealing genuine fear beneath. "Your Eminence," she said quietly. "We've intercepted diplomatic communications. The other powers, they've all made agreements with the humans already, some dating back decades." "Impossible." Emperor Park slammed his fist against the strategic display table, cracking its surface. "The humans only just revealed themselves." "No, Your Eminence," Director Lee corrected gently. "They only just revealed themselves to us. It appears they've been conducting silent diplomacy with other civilizations for generations." Emperor Park's rage was terrible to behold. 3 advisors were executed on the spot for failing to detect this threat earlier. But rage would not solve their problem. Meanwhile, aboard the Imperial dreadnought Eternal Conquest, Admiral Kim faced his own crisis of conscience. His fleet remained disabled, floating uselessly in space. The crew's morale had collapsed as they watched the human broadcasts exposing Imperial atrocities, many of which they had participated in without questioning. After hours of solitary contemplation, Admiral Kim summoned his senior officers to the command deck. 23 commanders stood at attention, their expressions somber. "I have served the Empire faithfully for 30 cycles," Admiral Kim began, his voice heavy with emotion. "I have led conquests, subjugated worlds, and never questioned my orders. But I cannot watch the Empire destroy itself through pride and stubbornness." He activated a display showing the human fleet. Still only 12 ships, yet they had neutralized the Empire's greatest armada without firing a shot. "The Emperor will never accept reform. He will sacrifice all of us, all of our citizens, before admitting he is wrong. I cannot allow this." The officers exchanged nervous glances. What Admiral Kim was suggesting bordered on treason. "So what do you propose, Admiral?" asked his second-in-command. Admiral Kim's mandibles set in a grim line. "The only option left to save our civilization. Prepare shuttles for the palace. Alert our ground forces who remain loyal to the military rather than the Emperor personally." The coup moved swiftly. Using emergency channels not compromised by the humans, Admiral Kim coordinated with military commanders across the capital. Within hours, Imperial forces loyal to him had surrounded the palace while human ships hovered silently overhead, watching but not interfering. Palace guards, seeing the overwhelming force arrayed against them, mostly surrendered without fighting. Only the Emperor's personal guard offered resistance, and even they fell back quickly when they realized how hopeless their position was. Admiral Kim led a small force directly to the Imperial throne room. To his surprise, Captain Kang was waiting there, standing calmly near the grand entrance. She nodded to him as if they had planned this together. They found Emperor Park seated on his throne, seemingly untroubled by the sounds of fighting that echoed through the palace. He watched Admiral Kim approach with all 4 eyes narrowed in contempt. "Traitor," he hissed. "Not to the Empire," Admiral Kim replied. "Only to you." Captain Kang stepped forward. "Emperor Park, your reign is over. The reforms will proceed whether you cooperate or not." In the Imperial throne room, with its soaring crystal ceiling and ancient artifacts of conquest, Kim and Kang stood before the Emperor, representatives of the old order and the new force that had upended it. "The old ways are finished," Kim declared, addressing not just the Emperor but the palace staff and officials who had gathered to witness this historic moment. "We must adapt or perish." Emperor Park's mandibles formed what might have been a smile. "You think I would surrender so easily? Fools, I still have one option left." His hand moved swiftly to a hidden control panel built into the arm of his throne. Admiral Kim lunged forward to stop him, but he was too late. Emperor Park's claw pressed the emergency activation sequence, the final resort that only he knew existed. Emperor Park's finger pressed down on the hidden control panel. His eyes gleamed with cruel satisfaction. The legendary Void Crusher, a weapon so terrible it had been kept secret from even his highest officials, would soon activate. It would tear a hole in reality itself, destroying the human fleet and half the capital system with it. Better to rule ruins than surrender. Nothing happened. He pressed again and again. The panel remained dark. Captain Kang watched him calmly. The weapon buried beneath the palace core. We neutralized it hours ago. Your engineers were quite helpful once they understood what they were building. Emperor Park's mandibles trembled with rage. For the first time in his long reign, he had no words, no threats, no options. Admiral Kim stepped forward. Your Eminence, for the good of all Imperial citizens, I ask that you step down peacefully. Within days, Emperor Park was placed under house arrest in the Summer Palace, a beautiful estate far from the capital. Guards watched him, but they treated him with dignity, a concept he struggled to understand. Why hadn't the humans executed him, as he would have done in their position? Meanwhile, a transitional council took control of the Empire. Representatives from every species within the Empire's borders were given seats, even those previously considered too primitive for political participation. The council chambers, once dominated by the ruling species, now buzzed with dozens of languages and communication forms. Admiral Kim, now serving as interim regent, addressed the first council meeting. The grand chamber was filled beyond capacity, with delegates from hundreds of worlds attending in person or via hologram. For too long, we have believed conquest was strength, he said, looking around at the diverse gathering. We were wrong. True strength comes from cooperation, from unity of purpose despite our differences. Many delegates remained skeptical. Centuries of imperial oppression couldn't be forgotten overnight, but the humans had shown them something remarkable: power without domination. In the weeks that followed, human ships visited dozens of worlds across the former empire. Their technology, so advanced it seemed almost magical, was put to work rebuilding. Human engineers helped restore environments damaged by imperial mining operations. Medical teams treated conditions that imperial doctors had ignored. Schools and hospitals replaced labor camps and military outposts. On Daronia, where imperial forces had harvested resources until the planet was nearly uninhabitable, human environmental specialists introduced new bacteria that could clean toxic soil. Within weeks, plants began growing again in areas dead for generations. On Mesic Prime, where the native population had been forced to work in dangerous energy extraction facilities, human engineers taught them how to create clean energy systems that required no manual labor at all. The Imperial Armada, once the terror of the galaxy, was repurposed. Warships became exploration vessels and defensive platforms. Soldiers trained as peacekeepers rather than conquerors. 6 months after their arrival, Captain Kang requested a special session of the council. Admiral Kim noted that she seemed more serious than usual, her typically calm demeanor replaced by something close to urgency. The council chamber fell silent as she took the central platform. Representatives from over 300 species watched attentively. Friends, she began, I must share something important with you. Humanity's intervention in your galaxy wasn't purely altruistic. A murmur ran through the chamber. Some delegates exchanged worried glances. Captain Kang activated a hologram in the center of the room. It showed deep space, the vast emptiness between galaxies. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then they saw it, something massive moving between the stars. The shape was difficult to define, seeming to shift and flow like liquid shadow. This entity was detected by our long-range sensors 15 years ago, Captain Kang explained. We've tracked its movement since then. It's heading toward this galaxy. The delegates stared at the hologram in silence. We call it the Void Drifter. Our scientists believe it's ancient, possibly older than the galaxies themselves. It consumes energy on a scale we can barely comprehend. And it's hungry. Admiral Kim leaned forward. What can be done? Alone? Nothing. Neither humanity nor the Empire could hope to stop it, Captain Kang replied. But together, with a unified galaxy pooling its knowledge and resources, we might stand a chance. She explained that humanity had sought out the Empire not just to end its oppression, but because they needed allies. The Empire's territorial reach, combined with human technology and the unique biological adaptations of various species throughout the galaxy, created possibilities that no single civilization could achieve. We need a united galaxy to face it, she concluded. That's why we couldn't allow the Empire to continue as it was, divided by oppression and fear. We need true allies, not subjects. In the year that followed, the former Empire transformed. It became the Galactic Alliance, with membership open to all spacefaring civilizations. Species that had hated each other for millennia now trained together, exchanged knowledge, and built new technologies. The humans shared their advancements freely but remained mysterious in many ways. They spoke little of Earth, focusing instead on the future they hoped to build together. One evening, Admiral Kim found Captain Kang watching the sunset from a balcony in the former Imperial Palace. "Your people could have conquered us easily," he observed. "Why didn't you?" Captain Kang smiled slightly. "Because that's not who we choose to be. Humanity learned long ago that true strength comes from lifting others up, not standing on their backs." She turned to look at the city below, where beams of dozens of species moved freely through streets, once restricted to the Imperial elite. "Besides," she added, "the Void Drifter doesn't care what species you are. It's coming for all of us. Together, we're stronger." Admiral Kim nodded slowly. He still didn't fully understand these strange, soft-skinned beings who had changed everything. But as he watched the first stars appear in the evening sky, he felt something he hadn't experienced in his long military career. Hope. The end.